We are live. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Check Service Industry Podcast. I am Reyshan Parker, and we talk about all things service industry related and whatever else we feel like talking about. If you haven't yet, please go watch my television series Beyond the Check, now streaming on Amazon Prime and Tubi TV. Tubi TV, it's free TV. Hey, if you're listening to this podcast later, you totally could have listened earlier on Tastemade, so go follow us on Tastemade in the Makers Forum, Beyond the Check on Tastemade, and you can listen live and ask my guest questions because they're all super awesome. I have a fantastic one today. He is the co-founder of BURLAP and Barrel. They are trying to save the world one spice at a time by improving the spice trade in today's day and age. Ladies and gentlemen, Ethen Frisch. Hi, Ethen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, sir. Where are you coming to me from?
Jackson Heights, Queens, New York City.
Nice. What's the weather like in Queens today?
It's sunny and nice. It's been a long, cold winter in New York City. I don't know
where are you coming from?
If any of your listeners Jackson Heights, Queens, being here, but we're happy that it's springtime.
Nice. I am also happy that springtime's almost over. I'm in Savannah and it's starting to get hot. So it was already like 85 degrees yesterday. It cooled down today, but yeah. Good times.
Yeah.
So, you love spices, man.
I love spices. I was a line cook and a pastry chef here in New York. I worked at a restaurant called Tabla, one of the first high-end Indian restaurants in the country under Chef Floyd Cardoz, who passed away a couple of years ago. And that I can talk about that part of the story too, how our lives sort of came back together. But I learned a lot from him and from other chefs about spices, not something I really grew up with, but something I fell in love with in kitchens, and then left restaurants to go to grad school, became an aid worker. I moved to Afghanistan, and long story short, came across this variety of wild cumin that grows in the mountains in the Northeast, started carrying it home in duffel bags to share with friends, mostly friends in the restaurant industry or other food industry friends, and got such positive feedback that, I mean, obviously I'm jumping over big parts of this story, but got such positive feedback that we decided to start a business around it.
That's super cool. So you're into food, you're into spices, you start doing some good works around the world, and you just fell into the spice trade, huh? I just couldn't stop cooking was really the problem. That I moved to Afghanistan and I was supposed to have this other job, and all I really wanted to do was talk to people about what they were eating and what they were cooking and traditional dishes and how they use these ingredients and how it all comes together. And I had a nice kitchen in my house in Kabul, and was able to have friends over and do a fair amount of cooking at home, experimenting with ingredients that I was coming across while I was traveling around the country. I was also lucky enough to work for a Muslim NGO and had an amount of sort of freedom of movement that most Americans in Afghanistan didn't have, for all kinds of obvious reasons. But you got to see the secret spots.
Well, I just got to experience the country as a little bit more of a, not from the windows of a military vehicle or something like that, but from actually being there and spending time with people. Yeah, exactly. And this cumin, I just had never tasted anything like it. That was it. That was the gateway spice.
The gateway spice. The one that put you down the path for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that good.
I don't
know that I've ever had that fresh of cumin in my life.
We'll have to send you some spices, but I think the point, what I sort of realized, that the point that became the business was that spices are like any other agricultural product. It's like wine grapes, it's like coffee beans. Origin matters, the skill, the expertise of the farmer matters, the way that the crop is processed after it's harvested. All of those things make a difference into flavor. Generally, people don't even realize that spices come from plants at all, let alone that they are grown by farmers who have a certain, have experience and expertise doing it. And people go buy a jar of cinnamon at the supermarket without realizing that it's the bark of a tree, and there are 4 different species, and it could have come from, half dozen different countries. And there are all of these variables, the age of the tree, the way that it was harvested, that changed the way that it tastes. And especially as a, as having worked in restaurant kitchens myself, we pay so close attention to those details when we think about our other ingredients, but we typically don't when it comes to spices. So that's what we got
I'm just
started doing.
now thinking that like how many different plants or parts of the plant do spices come from, right? Because it's not just, it's not like a fruit that's, it's got the soft outside and the seeds on the inside, right? That's a fruit. But a spice is not necessarily just, the root of a plant or the bark of a tree or the seeds of a pepper, right?
Yeah, I mean, a spice is really anything other than the leafy green part of a plant, which is typically when it's dried called an herb. But a spice could be a root or rhizome, when we're talking about ginger or turmeric. It could be a seed, anise or fennel. Spices can be leaves, bay leaves, curry leaves, makrut lime leaves.
So the leaves
bark,
of that, though, are the spice, but yet we call, like, say, oregano an herb. So it's herbs and spices.
Yeah, exactly. The distinction is pretty arbitrary, but I think it also has to do sort of ultimately with the texture or the shelf life. With an herb, you're generally working with something that's going to dry out faster or lose its flavor faster, whereas with a leaf, even a sort of a spice leaf, a tree leaf or something that's a little more robust, you'll get longer shelf life.
The tree leaf, the leaf of a tree versus the leaf of a plant.
So
that's where we're making our differentiation. All right.
Exactly. So these right here are the leaves of a cinnamon tree, which come from a cooperative of farmers in Zanzibar. We buy cinnamon from them and then realized that at one point, going to visit and spending time with them, that when they cut the branches off the tree to harvest the cinnamon bark, there are a lot of leaves attached to those branches, which they always just sort of left on the forest floor.
And waste not, want not.
Right, exactly. It's a great culinary ingredient. Cinnamon tree leaves are used in a lot of Indian and South Asian cooking. So now they dry them and sell them to us.
So how do we use the cinnamon leaf? Is it more like a bay leaf? Does it soak, or do we crush it? Yeah, bay leaf.
Yeah, any of the above. You can use it like a bay leaf. You put one into a pot of stew or curry or rice or anything like that. You get this amazing cinnamon aroma. I've made ice cream with them. It's interesting to sort of experience the cinnamon flavor without being sweet. It's a more kind of herbal, savory version of that familiar flavor. So it's kind of an interesting spin.
Yeah, I'm super curious about that now. Now I need to have cinnamon leaf ice cream.
Yeah.
So when you first started out, like, were you aware of kind of the inequities of the spice industry, or did you learn that along the way?
A little bit of both. I was definitely aware of the inequities between rural agricultural communities around the world and, the global north or industrialized cities. I had spent a lot of time working with people in rural communities in Afghanistan and elsewhere, and meeting farmers of all kinds of things, even kind of subsistence farmers growing for themselves or to sell a little bit at market. And the conversations I had, the frustrations I kept hearing was a lack of access to an international market, to a market that would pay them
decent money for
a significant amount of money. Yeah, exactly. I mean, farmers almost always know, especially farmers growing something for export, which spice farmers usually are. Farmers always know that they're not making the most money in that supply chain. They know that it's being marked up. They know that it's being sold down a chain. They know that the retail value might be, just multiples of the money that they're making. Yeah, exactly. So we're talking about significant markups that other people are making along the supply chain. And what farmers have not been able to do until fairly recently, and we're a part of this, is get direct access to that end market, to find the person who's used to spending, if a farmer sells their peppercorns for $1 a kilo to a local buyer, they could sell them to somebody else further down the line for a higher price. And so those are the kinds of farmers that we've partnered with. They're people who are already very entrepreneurial, who are already kind of thinking about these other approaches to this problem, this lack of access. And then we set them up to export. We walk them through it, and they ultimately take on a lot more responsibility in terms of packaging and export paperwork and all the other pieces that go into getting something ready to export to the U.S. for the first time. Food safety testing. There's all kinds of little details.
So they do have to pick up a little bit of of more business knowledge and skills than just farming.
Yeah, it's really whatever they're up for, whatever they can manage. The most important thing is that they grow exceptional products, that the spices that they grow just taste so much better than anything that you'd get anywhere else.
I'm paying like, I don't know, like $10 for like a small thing of pepper, right? And it's not that great of pepper, but it's $10 for this small thing of pepper. And I heard you say $1 a kilo.
So the origin price for commodity pepper, black pepper, is right around $1 a kilo, sometimes less, sometimes 60 or 70 cents a kilo. That's what a farmer makes for the black pepper that they sell.
And there's not a lot that has to be done to peppercorns to get them ready for market or even after shipping, right? Like you could literally just take those and put them in your pepper grinder and go to town.
Yeah. When everything goes smoothly, yes, exactly. That's exactly what you could be doing. And when we're talking about something like ground pepper, there are companies, their whole business is buying the dust off the grinding room floor from other companies, sterilizing it and packaging it. So if you're buying really cheap black pepper, that's probably ground black pepper. That's probably what you're getting. Is
meaning floor pepper?
Floor pepper, exactly. Floor pepper, yeah.
Oh no, floor pepper, and that's Kroger brand's cheapest at $10 for the little container.
Yeah, I mean, not to name any names, I don't know what Kroger's doing, but
I'm just assuming
you got what you pay
Walmart,
for.
Whatever. It's
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I had Lucky Strikes, the cigarettes back in the day, like that's the same for the shitty cigarettes was.
Oh really? Yeah.
Was the floor scrapings. Because like Marlboro would, wrap those and whatever's on the floor, those became like, I don't know, whatever cheaper, shittier cigarette was.
Yeah.
But, so you're getting spices from all over the world now though, yeah?
Yeah, we work with about almost 400 farmers in 20 different countries. Some of them grow one thing and that's all they grow. And we buy almost 100% in most cases of what they grow. We work with a single turmeric farmer in southern India, an Ayurvedic pharmacologist who left his sort of medical practice because he kept seeing the same diet related issues and wanted to put himself further back in the supply chain to grow medicinal crops instead of treating them, instead of dispensing them for treatment. A father and son fermented white pepper operation on a little island in Indonesia where they grow the pepper and then ferment it for 2 weeks in a little pond on their property. It's a whole other conversation, but a really interesting product. And then some cooperatives or associations, other groups of farmers.
So how do you find them? How did you find the guy on the island?
The guy on the island emailed me, believe it or not. Actually, that was a particularly crazy story. I was planning a trip to Indonesia, and this island is famous for this especially lengthy fermentation process. There are usually, so I'll just step back for a sec. White pepper and black pepper are the same plant. And the difference is that white pepper has had the outer skin of the peppercorn, which is a little fruit, removed. So peppercorns grow on vines in little bunches like grapes. So it's a climbing vine, and the peppercorns ripen individually. They're green, and then they turn orange, and then ultimately red. Usually peppercorns are picked while they're still green because they're more resilient and farmers can harvest more. And anyway, not necessarily because they taste better, just because it's easier.
Like the green pepper.
But like a green pepper, exactly. But in Indonesia and other places, they, instead of soaking the peppercorn for a couple of days, which is what's usually done just to loosen the skin so you can remove the white inner pit, they soak it for about 2 weeks. And the natural sugars in the fruit of the peppercorn, what normally kind of wrinkle up into that black skin, makes the black peppercorn look like a raisin, that rots away. And the sugars kickstart a fermentation process. And so the sacks of fresh peppercorns, they're tied up in these woven sacks, dropped into a pond, staked down. And you see bubbles rising up from underwater where these things are sort of suspended under the water.
That's super cool.
And then about 2 weeks later, they get pulled out, they get rubbed against a sieve and cleaned thoroughly, obviously. And you're left with just the white pit of the peppercorn, the white peppercorn. But it has picked up all of this crazy, like cheesy, savory, umami, kind of barnyard, funky aroma and flavor.
Badass.
So, long story short, I mean, I got to get back on track. I was planning a trip to Indonesia and was planning to go visit that island in particular because I was really interested in this process and hopefully finding a supplier for the pepper. And I got an email a couple of weeks before the trip Dear Ethan, my name is Sugiri. I'm a farmer on the island of Bangka in Indonesia. I grow white pepper. Would you like to buy white pepper from me? Um, and I emailed him. I said, buddy, you are not going to believe this, but I'm going to be there in a couple of weeks. And so I did. I went and visited his farm. I also visited at least half a dozen other farms on the island. And he was the one. We just kind of clicked, and his product was exceptional, and he was eager to export, where other farmers that I met were not so eager to take that on.
Really?
And we've been working with him and his son for, this is our 5th year since 2017.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic story. So the other people just did more of a pain in the butt than they thought it was worth, or?
Yeah, farmers. So the traditional supply chain for spices, and this has been true for hundreds of years, if not longer, where a farmer, usually a very small farm, is growing a little bit of whatever the spice is. Depends a lot on the country and where they could export to. But if they're growing a little bit of cardamom or black pepper, that's usually in addition to some subsistence crops that they grow, maybe other crops that they grow to sell locally. They sell that spice to a local buyer or broker, a middleman of some kind. Sometimes it's a truck driver who's doing a loop through the area during the harvest season and just buying from individual farmers. Sometimes it's a local buyer, somebody with a little warehouse in the village or something like that. And those people are buying from a few dozen farmers and selling on to somebody else who's buying from a few dozen intermediaries like them. And that's
so
the
on
supply
and so
chain. Yeah, exactly. So it's essentially a funnel effect with a lot of small farms at the top of the funnel, and then ultimately a couple of big exporters, usually at the bottom of the funnel. And that's really where the money is being made, at the export stage.
So can we safely say then that you are disrupting the spice trade?
I guess you could say that. We're not really, we're just going around it. It's just this old system where you couldn't just get on your phone and call somebody or text somebody. You had to speak to the next person, And it doesn't have to be like that. Farmers who want to should be able to get around that process. And increasingly, just because of modern communication technology, because I have a smartphone and they have a smartphone, we can work together in a way that we never would have been able to even 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, and it's crossing lots of industries now. People, smaller companies carrying and traversing the world and finding these farmers to distribute from coffee, spices to bananas. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. And that I can maintain a relationship from my home in Queens with my partner farmer in Vietnam and my partner farmer in Guatemala, and I can text them both and maintain a friendship beyond just sort of what we're buying and the kind of churn of the business. It's really important.
Cool. So how did he find you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. So that was your original question, was how we find farmers. So in some cases they find us. He found us on social media, I think. I mean, that was 2017. We had just started the business not even a full year before, in late 2016.
He's just Googling, buy my spices. Who wants to buy peppers? Who was spice companies in America? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably all it was. And now we do get farmers reaching out pretty regularly on social media, or they read about us in a publication and find our site. We work with NGOs, nonprofits, or local government offices. It starts with a decision about a certain spice that we want to source, and then I do a bunch of research to figure out where in the world it might be grown, or if certain places are famous for growing that or better at growing that, and then trying to get in touch with somebody who might know somebody, or farmers directly.
State Department, and then...
Yeah, exactly. In Vietnam, we met the Star Anise farmers, two cousins that we work with, through the local Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a government official who spent a couple of days driving us around this rural area on the Vietnamese-Chinese border up in the mountains. We had gotten in touch and said we wanted to meet Star Anise farmers. Her job was bringing in foreign investment into this rural agricultural community. And so she was our matchmaker and took us around, and we met these two women now who we've been working with for 3 years. So,
wow. I never would have thought that the spice trade, as an independent, that just sounds like an exciting, fun, and just gratifying experience to do.
It's pretty great. I mean, I get to travel around the world meeting. Come with us. It's been a little dry the last couple of years without being able to travel as much as we used to or we liked, but it's picking up again, and our social mission, our public benefit corporation status written into our articles of incorporation is to connect smallholder farmers with high value markets. And a big part of that, beyond the logistical stuff, which obviously we do beyond buying their spices, is also just helping them get a better sense of what the market is looking for in the US. That farmers get almost no feedback, especially spice farmers or other kind of commodity crops. They're selling into this very fragmented supply chain. Nobody ever comes back to them and says, your pepper was amazing, partially because their pepper gets mixed together with everybody else's pepper, so there's no way to follow it. But also because there's so many links in that chain, nobody comes back and says, if you grew your peppers a little bit bigger or a little spicier or changed, did something different in your process, you could make more money. You could have add a second product line to your business. There's feedback that farmers have not gotten. And so
spice analytics.
Yeah, exactly. What do people want? It's like, what do our customers want? What do they like? Do they like spicier ginger or sweeter ginger? I mean, right, there's lots of variables, and farmers often can make decisions if they have the right information. So that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, the communication, I think, is key. But you never think about that. Even in America, like, the product goes out, you never know, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Did people enjoy my asparagus? I just don't know.
Right.
I like to think so.
Yeah.
Farm
if
analytics.
They didn't complain, then we're doing okay. Yeah.
Digital farming, maybe a way of the future. There's an app for that.
Yeah. There probably is.
Oh man, that's funny. So because you kind of not closed down, but shortened the supply chain for your spices in the last 2 years, were you less affected by like supply chain shortages because you had direct access, or?
Yeah. I think you're right. We have been able to get through the last few years. I mean, obviously there have been supply chain challenges, and we import from challenging places, including Afghanistan and Zanzibar and lots of other countries that are kind of off of the big trade routes. But we were able to keep bringing spices in pretty steadily. Coming into the pandemic, half of our business was restaurant supply. That's sort of the world that I had come from. And then that disappeared overnight. And so we had a few weeks of existential crisis, not knowing if the business was going to make it or what was going to happen. And then I think, like a lot of food companies, home cooks came to our rescue. So we just saw people start buying spices for home use. And we had always had a direct-to-consumer business. That was always part of it. And but it was a smaller part of it. And now it's 80 or 85% of the business these days.
Nice.
Which is great.
That's amazing.
It's a different audience, and home cooks, I don't know, in a funny way, often are more flexible and sometimes more adventurous than professional chefs.
Oh yeah, well they're trying to get it. I mean, particularly with all your Instagram chefs, your social media chefs, your TikTok chefs now too. So you know, and they all are trying to be different, and they're all trying to show off something. So if you have a cool thing, they're probably going to jump on it because got to be creative. Like even if it fails, you make pickles and chocolate sauce for your pregnant wife and see if that really is something that she would like. She didn't delicious. Until I put that cinnamon leaf on it, and then she was totally
right. There you go.
Right. Oh, so you actually are a chef. Yeah. So what are some of your favorite dishes to make with your own spices?
I have been cooking a lot at home, especially my wife is pregnant, and I haven't made her pickles and chocolate sauce, but maybe I should with a little cinnamon leaf on top.
You never know. You never know.
I mean, I spent a lot of time sort of layering flavor in various dishes, and so I really like we have some of our particularly umami forward ingredients. We have an Urfa chili, a black Urfa chili. It's an Aleppo variety chili from southeastern Turkey that gets cured in the sun. And the pepper, which starts out red, turns this very, very dark brown, deep red that looks black. And then it goes through a stone grinding process with a little oil and salt. And it creates a chili flake that is sort of chocolatey, it has a coffee, malty, savory aroma and flavor in addition to the chili heat. That's one of my wife's favorite ingredients, so I use that a lot. We also have a fermented locust bean from Nigeria.
Fermented locust bean.
Yeah, it's an ingredient called iru. They grow in pods on a tree. They look like carob or tamarind pods, that kind of thing. And the beans get removed from the pods and boiled, salted, and fermented. And it's also kind of chocolatey, cheesy, sort of a miso flavor profile. These little dry black beans. Anyway, so I use a lot of those ingredients. And then we also have recently started working with more local farmers in upstate New York, mostly, some in California too. But
Oh, nice.
so we've been able to buy local ingredients, dehydrate them, and essentially turn them into spices. So we have ramps, wild ramp leaves, harvested in the Adirondacks, dehydrated, and ground up into little flakes. We're launching a seaweed this weekend, wild dulse, purple seaweed from the Gulf of Maine.
As a spice or the whole seaweed?
No, as a spice, yeah, kind of broken up into little flakes like a chili flake. Either something you add in a broth or a stew or something to add that umami boost, or
a little
honestly,
salty.
works great as exactly. It works great as a garnish or a finishing ingredient too. That kind of salty and
Briny,
oceany aroma and flavor. Yeah.
Tastes like the sea. Tastes like the sea.
Exactly.
What is there like? What is the rarest like thing that you've come across that's like? I mean, is it saffron, or is there something even harder to obtain than saffron?
There are things that are harder to obtain than saffron. I'm trying to see if I have. Yeah, I do. I have a dried out one. This doesn't look great. We were experimenting with some packaging, and this packaging didn't work perfectly. There's several other species of vanilla other than the one that people are generally familiar with, which is vanilla planifolia. There's Tahitian vanilla, which people may have tried. But then there's also something called a pompona vanilla, which is a super rare...
Pompona?
Pompona,
How do I spell pompona?
Pompona. Is that backwards for you? Can you?
No. Actually, it's actually correct. It's backwards for you, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, this pod here. Let me open the package. It's pretty dried out, so it's not as impressive. But it's a very long.
Oh yeah, I see it. No, I see it.
It's a very long pod, and they're usually They're like. It's if a regular vanilla bean is a string bean, then this is like a sugar snap pea or something. It's shorter and fatter and tons of flavor. Yeah, exactly. And it
looks like a Harry Potter wand almost.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it does. They have to be wild. Vanilla is almost always hand pollinated. Vanilla is native to Mexico and Central America.
By humans?
There's only one species. Yeah, by humans. The natural pollinators for the vanilla flower only opens for a few hours once a year. So you get like that white orchid that you see on the Haagen-Dazs pint or wherever else. Mm-hmm. That opens for like 3 hours or 5 hours one morning once a year.
One morning
once a year.
Wow.
And so the farmers have to be watching their vines very closely. They go out with essentially a little toothpick and they self-pollinate each flower. So you loop a little part of the flower on another part of the flower and you squeeze them together. And 9 months later, you have a vanilla bean. The only place where that happens naturally with a natural pollinator is in Mexico or kind of southern Mexico to northern South America.
So is a bee pollinating it, or is there a special? Yeah. It's a bee. Yeah.
It's a bee. It's called a dilemma bee, which is the best name for the super rare bee that pollinates the super rare species of vanilla. So everywhere that vanilla is grown commercially, it's hand cultivated, it's hand pollinated, because that's the only way to make sure that it's actually happening in that very short window of time that you have to do it. But Pompona vanilla is not grown on that scale. There's really no commercial production. It only grows wild.
That is more rare than saffron.
More rare than saffron.
How is
we get
it?
Tiny quantities. It's great. It's a little more sort of savory than standard vanilla. It's kind of leathery, sort of dried cherry, that flavor profile. Makes sense.
More robust and
yeah.
It's probably from those dilemma bees. Make
everything taste better.
They're so concerned. It makes everything taste better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a great name. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Pompona
Pompona
vanilla.
vanilla.
Do you carry Pompona vanilla?
We do occasionally when we can get it. So we get a small shipment a couple of times a year from this group of a half dozen guys who manage vines in the Peruvian Amazon.
So
They know where they are and they keep an eye on them and they harvest the beans as they ripen. But
I did not know that there was a single plant on the planet that like humans literally had to, basically self impregnate. I don't know.
yeah,
Inseminate?
yeah,
Inseminate. That's the word we're looking for.
pollinate. Yeah.
Pollinate. There you go. Yeah. You would know. So is there like a favorite, or hold on, is there one of the strangest things that you just didn't think Americans would go for that actually surprised you that turns out we were into?
Yeah, one of the spices that does well, sort of a sleeper in our lineup, is black lime.
Black lime.
So they're whole limes, regular old green limes that have been dried in the sun and then fermented, and they oxidize. They turn black as they dry. They go from green to sort of a rust red color to black. And then we grind them up into a powder. So it's the whole fruit, the skin and the pith and the pulp and everything, but it's been through this oxidation and fermentation process. So it tastes like a lime, but a lime with all these other kind of really interesting, savory, roasty, leathery, mineral notes.
What are we using it for?
So traditionally it's a Persian and Iraqi ingredient. It's used in a lot of Persian stews, usually as a whole lime dropped into a stew that then just simmers forever and infuses it with this amazing flavor. In Iraq, they'll use it in both forms, whole and powdered, as like a rub for grilled meat or fish, that kind of thing. But really, you can use it anywhere you'd use lime or lemon juice. It's just a ground, sort of a powder version of the same thing. It's the same fruit.
Guacamole.
So it's, great on guacamole, great on seafood.
Iraqi Mexican fusion.
Yeah, right, exactly. Great in a margarita rim. Great on anything grilled or roasted, veggies. Really, really interesting in desserts, shortbread cookies, things like that, where you want some tartness. A very cool ingredient, and one that's pretty consistently in definitely our top 10 bestsellers, if not our top 5.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I cook with pretty much usually just salt and pepper. Like I usually just let food speak for itself, and my spice rack is not glamorous. But I have to say that I am super enticed to actually try a few of these spices, just with different things, which is exciting because it's hard to cook with spices for just the general American, because we just don't know. We don't have the taste profiles. We don't get out that much, around the world, and so it's scary. I think it's scary at first to try to dive into different flavor profiles if you don't know what you're getting into. But how much fun is that? Like you've been doing it your whole life now, or a lot of your life now.
Yeah, my professional life for sure. And I think, I think people probably have more exposure to spices than they realize, whether it's chili flakes or garlic powder or cinnamon, right? Like these are iconic ingredients in the American pantry. And what I always recommend, if you're interested in a spice and trying to figure out how it works or how to use it, add it to something that you already cook, to a recipe that you know pretty well. Make a tomato sauce and put a little bit of cardamom in it, or put a little bit of black lime in it, and see what happens. See what it does to that flavor profile. And then I think especially good cooks, people with professional kitchen experience, will find ways to slot that flavor into other things they're cooking pretty easily.
It just spices things up, if you will.
Exactly.
Up your life, spice up your dishes.
Nicely done.
Yeah. So what do you make? So in the house, does your wife cook too, or are you the major chef of the house?
Yeah, my wife doesn't cook at all.
Neither does mine.
It can't be an accident, right? Like they were looking for something, it worked out this way.
Mm-hmm. She always says, like, whenever she's like bragging to me, or like when we were first together, she'd tell her mom like he makes me dinner every night, and like he make sure I'm fed and takes care of that. So that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, last night I tried to recreate one of her mother's recipes with mixed. I mean, it didn't work. I mean, the recipe came out fine. I was pretty happy with it. I made some changes to it that she was not into.
Because you messed with her childhood memories and taste buds. Right?
Exactly. I knew I could never match it, so I changed some things so that I could, at the very, just say that like it's a little bit different. Don't get your hopes up.
It's Ethan's spin.
Exactly. But it didn't work. It came out fine. It was okay, but she gave me a little bit of a hard time.
What was it?
So her family is from Afghanistan, and so it's an Afghan dumpling recipe called ashak. So they're vegetable dumplings. They're leek dumplings. It's sort of a garlic leek.
Mm-hmm.
There is a garlic leek. These kind of skinny blade-shaped garlicky greens in a dumpling skin with tomato meat sauce and garlic yogurt on top. So you boil the dumplings and then you sort of layer them on a platter with these like garlicky green dumplings. And then, it came out great. But it wasn't her mother's, I added some things. I changed a couple of things, but but it was pretty good.
She can have moms at Christmas or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I guess that wouldn't be a thing, or is it? I don't know.
Next time we go visit, she'll get some.
They live in the States, or they still live in Afghanistan?
Yeah, they live in California.
Oh, they live in California. Nice. Yeah. Well, then I guess they don't have to deal with. Well, it's kind of the same climate, right? It's sunny all the time. Doesn't snow.
Parts of Afghanistan, the whole north of Afghanistan, including Kabul, gets cold. Gets a lot of snow.
A lot of snow.
Yeah. We used to have. There were drives that we couldn't do during the winter because they got snowed in, going these like.
That is not what you think about when you think about Afghanistan. Do they ski?
In fact, they do. There has been a little bit of skiing in this one province in Afghanistan. Yeah.
Well, how about that?
It's hard to get to, but worth it, I guess.
Is there a ski lift, or you got to like hike up the mountain and then just come back down? Yeah.
I think you can ride a donkey up the mountain, put on your skis, hop up on a donkey, ride the donkey up the mountain, and then ski back down.
And the donkey knows how to get back.
Maybe you could even put skis on the donkey.
Oh, man. They're having way more fun in Afghanistan than I thought.
Yeah, for sure.
See, here we just try to pin the tail on the donkey. We don't try to put skis on.
There we go.
Kids, you're gonna be having a kid here soon. I heard. Are you excited?
Yeah, very excited.
So I've talked to a lot of people about, like I wish that when I was a kid, so I was raised by this hippie herbalist mother, so we ate really healthy when I was a kid. I have 3 younger sisters, so by the time my third sister was there, we definitely had potato chips and cookies and shit in the house. But during that period of time, like my grandparents would sneak us off to McDonald's, right? So they were the culprits that ruined me for the rest of my life. Just terribly delicious. Anything that's really delicious is probably bad for you because it's just too good. You know what I mean? Like It's just too good. It's addictive. This is wrong. This is definitely candy. And so I don't have kids, but if I did, I would try so hard to just like not ever let them eat anything that is actually that tasty.
Yeah.
But it is almost an impossibility. Like it's impossible. They're going to go to school. They're going to be around people. Their friends they're going to be jealous of what their friends eat, right? So it's educating and making healthy food exciting from a very young age and making the palate desirable for these things. And you have all these spices, so I feel like your kid's probably going to be fine.
I guess, I don't know. I have a lot of chef friends who have kids who won't eat anything except pizza and fish sticks. There's something that happens. Maybe it's a reaction to just being surrounded by so many flavors and so many options. I don't know. I think ultimately we probably don't have a whole lot of control over what our kids like to eat, at the very least. So I'm just along for the ride.
I mean, because I eat not terrible. I eat medium well. I eat medium good, right? Like I try to balance everything regularly. Just a nice balance of vegetables. Don't eat too much meat. Don't eat too much sugar. But again,
Yeah.
I'm gonna house a packet of Sour Patch Kids at some point.
Sure.
It's gonna happen, but that's okay
Yeah.
as long as you don't eat a pack of Sour Patch Kids every day, right?
Right. Right.
And I think it's just the education of having them be the know-it-alls about food and explaining, right? So if the kid can be the smartest one in the room about what you're eating, then they might go for it. I'm just ways to trick kids into like being healthy, right? Because you got to trick them. I have I have 4 nephews and a niece, and you got to trick them.
How do you trick them?
Make it seem cool, right? Like, so before they know that it's not cool, or that their friends tell them that broccoli's not cool, right? You just lead by example, right? And so if maybe mom doesn't like it, but Uncle Reyshan loves it, well, then the kid's like, well, I want to be like that, right? So
Yeah.
it's a form of marketing, I think, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So you looking forward to that?
Yeah, very much. I think it's going to be great. I'm excited to make lots of purees and try to convince an unhappy child to eat all the wacky things that I'm putting in front of them.
You never know. He might love it, or she. Do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you making for dinner tonight?
Dinner tonight. I already made lunch today. I took the leftover tomato sauce, the meat sauce that I made for the dumplings last night, and cooked it up with some Chinese fermented black beans and a little soy sauce and black vinegar, and turned it into sort of a sauce. And then I cooked some tofu in the sauce, so that's what we had for lunch.
Nice.
Sort of like a mapo tofu, but with a tomato-based meat sauce instead of other things.
I like that it's veg tofu and meat. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's an okay thing to do.
It's a good combination.
Yeah.
It's a good combination. I don't know what I'm making for dinner yet. I've got some greens. I've got some stuff in the freezer. I don't have a plan. Just gonna wing it, see what happens.
Either way, there's probably going to be some spices involved.
Yeah, probably.
Cool. So what's next for the company? What any exciting things coming up?
Yeah, a few things. Quite a few things. One thing is I'm writing a cookbook with my in-laws, an Afghan cookbook.
Oh, fun.
A mini sort of cookbook lit that we're going to publish, self-publish and sell through our site. So it'll be a couple of dozen of their recipes. We spent a month in LA with them, me chasing my mother-in-law around the kitchen with a phone, like trying to keep track of a teaspoon of this. And is that half a teaspoon? Yeah, sure. It's half a teaspoon. And
it's a scant handful.
Yes, exactly. It's the right amount. It's just the right. Just put the right amount of garlic on. Great. So I'm working on that. That'll be out in the next few months. One of the areas that we're expanding out this year is blends, spice blends. We've really focused on single spices and setting up those supply chains from the farm that grows them to bring them into the US. But we're starting to do more blends, both blends that we're producing here. We have a lineup of chef collaboration blends, of a set of 6 Indian masalas that we did with Floyd Cardo's chef I mentioned earlier. We had started working on that together before he passed away. He got COVID in March of 2020. And then we have sort of a set of blends that we made with him and then with his wife after he passed as kind of a legacy project, a memorial to him. Really great Indian spice blends. And then we're launching a line of what we're calling origin blends. So spice blends made at origin by the farmers themselves or by experienced millers or processors. There are longstanding traditions of making spice blends for a local audience that have not been exported before.
That is exciting.
Yeah, and when you look at spice blends on the shelf, you go to the supermarket and there's somebody selling a garam masala or a za'atar. Like, who came up with that recipe? Where did that come from? Where's the expertise that was based on? I just never really trusted those kinds of blends. I just never thought they tasted that good or that interesting. And so we're setting up quite a few of our existing partners to make some blends with the spices that they grow. So we launched our first origin blend, a Palestinian za'atar, a few weeks ago. That's on our site now. And then we have a Turkish kofta blend, a meatball blend coming out in a couple of weeks. We've got an herbs de Provence from a collective of herb farmers in Provence. So there's some cool stuff in the works.
We can taste the world. If you go to Burlap and Barrel, you can taste the world.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Actually, our gift boxes say "Welcome to a world of incredible flavor."
Oh,
That's the
hey.
slogan. You're on it.
Spot on, sir.
And then the other thing that we're working on, which I'm very excited about, is sugar. Where there's a whole category in salt of fancy finishing salt, where you care about where they came from and kind of differences in texture and flavor. But that doesn't exist in sugar. All we eat is white sugar, or white sugar that has been dyed brown, which is what all brown sugar is. It's just white sugar with molasses added back into it to get the right color. But it's not.
What about the little brown packets of like that thinks like pure grain?
Turbinado sugar, anything sugar in the raw, anything like that is also just white sugar that's been sprayed with molasses to make it brown again.
Those sons of bitches.
And there are amazing traditions of agricultural sugars from all around the world. Panela from Colombia, jaggery from India, coconut palm sugars, maple sugar. But people don't think about sugar as a source of flavor. It's really just sort of pure sweetness, this kind of chemical sucrose that accomplishes various things in a dish, but isn't really about origin or story or flavor or uniqueness. So we're rolling out a line of interesting agricultural sugars this year.
That is fun. You really don't think about sugars like that. When you think about sugar, I think of avoiding it.
Yeah, exactly. but if your sugar tasted better and came from a better source and had a cool story behind it.
Yeah, if I felt if I felt more honey-like towards it,
Yeah, exactly.
Because even honey is still the sucrose, which isn't, great for you, but you have so much more in honey, right? There's so to it than just the sucrose.
Exactly. And sugar historically was a spice, or was treated as a spice. And it was really slavery in the Caribbean and industrialization in Europe that moved sugar out of this category of being a spice and into this kind of commodity category that we know it in today. But if we could get back to that sort of earlier understanding of sweetness as a flavor, just like, chili capsaicin hotness is a flavor, or tartness from citrus is a flavor that we use as a tool when we're cooking.
Balance are sweet, savory, salty, and citricy.
Yeah, exactly. All of the flavors. Yeah, exactly. Thinking about it as a source of a specific flavor that we're bringing to a dish.
Bringing the balance.
Yeah.
Revolutionizing, disrupting the spice industry. Co-founder Ethen Frisch dude, this has been so inspiring and enlightening. Like I've learned so much about spices today that I really honestly didn't know. And
cool.
Dude, I'm jealous. You just get to travel again now? Are you get to go visit the farms again?
I just got back from a trip to Guatemala to visit the cardamom farmer that we've worked with for 5, almost 6 years, and then Colombia to visit a sugar producer, panela producer. And I'm going to Provence, twist my arm, it's a tough life, in a couple of weeks to meet some herb farmers and taste some herbs de Provence in Provence.
To make that blend, to make that blend.
Exactly.
Awesome. You want to give any shout outs?
Check out our website, burlapandbarrel.com. Email me if you have any questions about spices, Ethen@burlapandbarrel.com.
Badass, sir. You are the spice man. Thank you so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, please go check out Burlap and Barrel. Get yourself some spices. I'm definitely going to. And if you haven't yet, please go watch my television series and go follow us on Tastemade. Ethen, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, keep it spicy, my friend.
Talk to you soon.
Cheers.